quickly, the crowd. The crowd was, if you took those Southland fans out of the crowd, we're literally talking, I reckon we're talking less than 300-400 Otago people in the crowd.
I did think it looked empty. It sounded, you could hear the Southland fans.
I'll tell you what's good. I'll mention this. I don't know if this is going live. Is when the home team's getting booed, I love that. Like, I love when it's a bit of a statement for the away fans.
Oh yeah. That was huge. There was they obviously didn't have the north stand at Forsyth Bar wasn't open, so the Spate stand was the only stand open, and as we can see there on the highlights, 80 to 90% South, and I would suggest. It would be interesting to know the crowd number, because I would think, yeah, definitely you're talking 200-300 at the max, probably Otago supporters. I know they've had their struggles in the last couple of years with crowds. I know last year I think it may have been even as low as 800 fans at a game. So I guess Southland definitely had the. It was essentially a home game under the roof, if you look at it in that respect.
Is uni holidays or anything?
No, they just have Rio week, I'm pretty sure. So
it's such an easy game to promote. I don't know why
they still had Colts footy on though. So
true.
It was only semis, I think.
Yeah, Colts finals, I think, alongside the first 15 final this week. Yeah.
Yeah, so they must have had semis last week, but still, that's not a huge. I wouldn't think there's obviously a bit of a disconnect between fans and like wanting to go to the game, and I don't know. That's because that's for a population that Otago's got. 120,000 there. I don't know if that's probably a bit much, but you can't be getting that little sort of fucking game.
Well, particularly when you add in the fact that you're going to a game when it's under the roof. There's no weather. Good at in terms of atmosphere. When there is a few people in there, is a great atmosphere. So yeah, I'm not quite sure. Southland playing Otago. Are Otago people not interested? I'd possibly.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it might be reflective of the ITM Cup or Bunnings, whatever the fuck this thing's called, as a whole. I don't know what numbers were like, because it usually feels like the, I guess you'd say smaller unions do get better crowds, or they definitely get more passionate crowds, I think. But that might be reflective of it as a whole.
Yeah, I think when you add in the fact that the opening weekend of the Bunnings NPC was alongside the All Blacks' first, I guess, Bledisloe test of the year, when you factor that in, you factor in the fact that they've put both 2 games on Saturday and 2 games on Sunday at the same time. It suggests that they obviously, yes, they have to squeeze obviously all the fixtures in, but shows that it's obviously not huge on the priority list, I would imagine. Anyway, we'll crank into the game, because it was probably not the most entertaining, I guess, free-flowing game of footy, but nonetheless, the Southland fans probably were the story. But in terms of the game itself, Otago off to a pretty hot start. Look, probably should have had a few more points on the board than they did early, 10-0 lead, but then the Stags boys in their first outing 2021 clawed their way back through the boot of Marty Banks and that man GPT, Tatey, off a well-worked line-out play down the front. So I guess half-time it was sort of pretty even. Then, to be fair, 40 to 60 minutes, Stags pretty dominant, played some pretty good footy at times. Took the lead, and then unfortunately from a Southland perspective, the last 20 minutes just unravelled a wee bit, with Otago sort of coming home strong, couple of penalties, bit of ill-discipline, and then obviously Marty Banks levelled it up with 2.5 minutes to play, but then unfortunately for Southland fans, line break, and then Freedom Vaakolu, who's a pretty impressive footballer, scored the match winner, so 26-19 under the roof. Thoughts, fellas?
I mean, from what I saw, it was a pretty typical Southland performance in terms of scrambling well and competing at the breakdown hard, and just kind of what you expect of a Southland performance is to get stuck in physically. I know they spent a lot of that first half scrambling, as you mentioned, and probably were lucky to go into Oranges only down 3. So there's certainly things they'll be looking to improve on. Marty Banks mentioned in his post-game that they'll be happy with that performance, but it's a loss, and they'll have a lot to improve on. They probably came out more unscathed than Otago in terms of injuries. Obviously, they had a couple of serious ones, but Southland have lost Caleb Upper-Hama. Was that for that season, isn't it, Scotty?
Yeah, I believe torn his pec, unfortunately for him, and for the Stags, so he's gone. But yeah, apart from that, like you said, pretty healthy, I think, injury-wise, with a couple of guys to come back. So, yeah. Brycey, thoughts, mate?
I think it's even though it was a loss, a close loss, I think it's a huge pass back for the first game. I think, again, we talked about this last year. They'll have goals of probably making a championship semi-final, and you want to sort of build towards those really winnable games against those teams in and around you in the championship. And I think they've done that. I know you said they had most of the ball, Otago, in that first 15 minutes, and then when Gilbert scored that try off that grubber, even though he scored, it was pretty. I think there was a big nod towards Southland's D that they had to sort of resort to grubbering it in behind. So it's a shame they couldn't have cleaned that up. But goal line D was epic. That's going to help them out later in the season. So they're really good signs to build on. I thought, you mentioned Tatey, but I thought Joe Walsh was really good, and Matt James too. Like he's one of those weird guys who's probably a better professional, like IDM Cup player than he is club player. There's a few of them floating around. He just tears in, doesn't he, at that level? And I think again this week, I don't think they'll beat Bay of Plenty, but if they build again, then when they meet those teams like Manawatu, Northland, I think they should be favourites, which is what we want.
One thing that I guess we get a bit more of a look at this week, which can become a bit of a concern later down the season, is if you have to put in that physical defensive effort every week, and you just run out of juice if you're doing that. So you want to have games where you're actually controlling a lot of the ball and you're not exerting as much, I guess, physicality as you have to do, because that was a physical game defensively. That would have taken a fair bit out of them. They've got an extra day to recover, which is good, but yeah, I mean, that's going forward probably not something that you want to be replicating too often.
Yeah, I know that was a bit of an issue last year for the team in terms of it's all good to have those low scoring tight games and be right in the game, but when you're having to make double the amount of tackles that the opposition's making, it quickly becomes pretty energy sapping, especially if you look at it over the course of 2, 3, 4 games. Pretty sapping, especially under the roof. So, I'm sure it'll be something the coaches and the fellas will be looking at this weekend around how they can, I guess, get a bit more possession, and then when they do have possession, I guess be a bit more effective with it. I know it was the big thing last year, how it can be a bit more effective when we have the ball and try and score some more points. But I thought between the 40 and 60 minute mark, we actually looked quite good. Especially I thought when we attacked back down the blind side, we often carried, and then our forwards got over the gain line. We went back down the blind. We looked quite good. I thought Milo Harris at 9 controlled that pretty well, especially after half time. I thought he actually had a pretty good game. And even when Josh Rington come on, I thought he went all right. Just kept it nice and I guess steady in terms of playing back to that blind. Every time we sort of looked to play wide to the open side, it's sort of we always got cut down behind the gain line. So I'm sure there'll be something James Wilson and the fellas will be looking at. In terms of performances though, fellas, you talked about a couple of fellas, Brycey. I thought one guy who he was a regular name on the pod during club rugby, called into the team, I guess, as an injury replacement. Joseph Robbins came on pretty early, I think about the 20-minute mark for Caleb Upper-Hama. And to be fair, he was probably one of Southland's best. I guess if you were to line up the Bunnings NPC locks, he would be at the lower end in terms of weight and frame. But by geez, he threw himself around there.
Massive heart. Like, you could just tell defensively some of the efforts on the line. I think he got under, I'm not too sure, it was someone in the first half when he just come on and held them up along with, I think, Tatey. So he puts his body on the line, and as you said, he'd be smaller than some backs out there in terms of weight, but he wouldn't be got many guys who've got a bigger ticker than him.
He impressed you, Brycey, Joey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can put people in boxes, and he's come through that country route, so he sort of typifies those characteristics that you find in those really good country players. And they're the type of blokes you probably want next year when you're getting fucking your line pumped 15 minutes straight. So he's huge.
I actually thought he looked fucking quite fit as well. Like he got down there when they made that break in the last minute. He came down after Isaac made that covering tackle, and he was the first man that breakdown. So I'm not sure if he does heaps of stuff or he's just on the farm, but yeah, it didn't look out of place lungs wise.
Yeah. Absolutely. I guess in terms of, we looked at a couple of the new guys, fellas. We had Willie Tafui playing 12. Obviously pretty glaring when you look over the other side, and I guess Ray Newt, who's been a bit of a staple in the backline for the Stags the last 3 seasons, can't even make the 22. The 23. Then you got a guy like Sean Withy, obviously out of Southland Boys High, not able to make the 23 either. I guess whether it's a slap in the face or not, I don't know, but I guess just shows you, there's guys like that who can't even make the 23, but I'm sure they would, Stags could definitely, I guess, do with those lads in there as an example.
Yeah, I mean, it seems. Yeah, you go, Bryce.
Yeah, are you okay, Scotty?
Yeah, I don't know, mate. The one that got away.
I get what you mean, but those 2 blokes at the end of the day signed those contracts, so they don't force their hand, so they chose to start there with those risks. But
I think what I'm more saying is the fact that they're just not, they're not even in the 23, they're not even on the field, and they left. Well, not so much Sean, but in the case of Ray, like he left to play for Otago to get opportunity.
Yeah,
and yet he's not even on the field. That's what I'm saying.
One of the first names on our team sheet, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think you look at that. If you were going to sign there, you look at that Otago midfield, and they've got fucking options galore. Like you wouldn't be thinking you'd walk in straight into a starting spot. So
yeah, Bettis could play 13 easily too.
Yeah, like their Otago backline, with all due respect, one of the better ones of the comp, as much as it pains me to say. Like they're pretty handy around the park.
Yeah. Thought anyone catch the eye for Otago? Thought there were a couple of guys played particularly well. Obviously, that we know they lost Jonah, Josh Ioane, and Josh Honick pretty early, but there were a couple of guys I thought, particularly the 6. I think it's Sam Fishley.
Has he played for Tyree? I think.
I thought he was very good for them.
Yeah,
around the field was his work rate.
Yeah,
haven't seen him before, but I thought he was pretty impressive.
We mentioned this offline, but huge Karoi fan. Like he just can play everywhere. I don't know if he'll ever be an All Black or anything like that, but he's just the kind of guy that you kind of want your 23 because he can play everywhere. He kicks goals, sort of makes something happen out of nothing. So, yeah, I mean, losing Ioane early is got a pretty fair replacement, and Karoi is pretty. And you mentioned Freedom Vahakolo. He was busy.
Yeah.
And he looks pretty difficult to tackle. So, Otago got a pretty good one there.
Oh, no. All good. Right, we might get to the next week or this week's game against Bay of Plenty shortly, but I guess there was some other footy up in Dunedin on Saturday. The Southland Country team were in action for the first time. Took on Otago Country at Uni Oval and got the chocolates, 18-10. Pretty good victory for the Southland Country fellas. I know they'd only got thrown together after the sub-union tournament the week before, so I know a lot of those guys probably have played together, but nonetheless, pretty impressive victory from the Southland Country lads.
Yeah, I mean, that Otago Country team, there's some pretty good teams in there, so they're looking through their names. There's some familiar ones in there for Southland Country to go up there and tip them up. I've only read about the game in the ODT, and it read that the Southland forward pack were just sort of playing a bit of Barbados footy in terms of just beating the shit out of them up front, and that set a pretty good platform with them. I think they scored a penalty try from a pushover scrum, so
yeah,
it's a pretty fair indication of the dominance they had at set piece time. And read like Lockie McCall and Howdy were being nuisances, Jacob Coughlin at the breakdown as well. So, it's a good performance for Otago Country, and obviously set them in pretty good stead for what they'll probably consider a bit of a grudge match this weekend.
Yes, Brycey. Well, any quick thoughts on that, or you want to move on to the town country fixture?
No, same as I see. You guys talked about it on last week's pod, how strong that team looked on paper for the first time in a while. And yeah, Lockie, Jacob Coughlin, sounds like they ripped up. Why a game like that should be at a country club though somewhere, right?
Yeah, we mentioned that last week. It was because of the Stags, correct?
Yeah, so Stags
right.
Otago, they've lined that up, mate. So they've lined that up so they can shower up, get on the soup at the Stags game, I believe. So
Okay, gotcha.
I believe Southern Country may have actually had a corporate box,
which they would have had a really good time in. I'd imagine those
I
fellas
could imagine Lockie McCool leading the charge. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did see he did get a mention in the ODT, so obviously a good weekend out for Lockie, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but we'll move ahead, fellas. Big weekend of footy. We might start with the country boys. They're taking on the town boys in the annual town country fixture. Didn't happen in 2020, but back on the cards again this Saturday out at Mosburn. So we bit of a different venue, I guess, in terms of off the grid a wee bit. 2:30 kickoff. Country probably playing $1.02 at the TAB. I guess we looked through the town team, fellas, pretty disjointed in terms of, I guess, their preparation for this game. Took on South Canterbury a couple of weeks ago and got trolleyed up 55-0, and then were meant to play a Pacific Island 15, but unfortunately that game sort of never eventuated. They had a bit of a shorter hit out, I guess, against the under-19s last Thursday, and then sort of, I guess, trying to put together a 15 for this weekend. I know they'll have a couple of Stag boys potentially back in the mix, but yeah, probably country hot favourites.
Yeah, I would imagine they'll be. I was going to leave that one to you, Brycey, but I can't see country losing this fixture. I'm not too sure what the track's going to be like out at Mosburn. I think potentially by this time of year it'll be a bit slow, so a Southland town boys are going to have to be turning up their forwards in particular with an attitude that's going to be on them to win that game, I think, because that country forward pack will come at them at set piece time, at the breakdown, in collisions. Like they'll be right up for it. And country usually have a bit more of a mentality regarding, I guess, that probably means a little bit more to the country boys playing the town team. So
chip on the shoulder. Yeah,
absolutely, and that's something that's ingrained with them from a young age, for better or worse. So I think country will be winning this, and I'm not going to say comfortably. I think town will put up a performance, but I just can't see them losing in the Mosburn track on the
lot rests on Dan Keen's shoulders, perhaps, from a town perspective.
Yeah, talking to him today, he saying it rocks in my head for even telling him country would win. So I'd imagine he'll have to back up a bit of that talk on Saturday. So but rests on Kenzie's shoulders. I'm not sure if he's
might be hard from the pine though.
Well, that may be. Well, he could play prop, but
yes.
I'm not too sure if he'll put his hand up for that.
Found himself at prop. Maybe a Flynn Thomas or a Jacob Payne perhaps running around. But I guess we'll watch that space over the next couple of days. Brycey, give us your thoughts, mate. Country probably red hot. I know perhaps even a Jacob Coughlin could be added to the mix. As you may confirm that for us.
I haven't heard. I thought he'd be playing for country if he's playing for anyone. I haven't heard any mail to suggest otherwise. So
no.
That would be extremely controversial if he played for Southland Country last week and he got pulled from them this week. Anyway, I think I've been to a few of those games over the years, and they're always fucking good. They're always close. There's always seems to be a skill gap, I guess, between town and country. Usually town's good on paper, and country use that passion and that kind of hate for town to bridge that gap and make a game of it. So if they've now got probably the more skillful side, plus that hate, doesn't bode well for the town boys. No. And it's a hard game to get up for too if you're a town lad. I don't think not too many people are passionate about town. So
possibly reflective in. I know they've been battling for I guess you call it full training numbers, so to speak. So I guess in terms of that passion and that, Country with the advantage, but I guess in terms of Stags boys that are coming down, perhaps I know Liam Howley will definitely be suiting up, and potentially a few others as well. So that may, I guess, definitely aid the town cause.
He'll bring a bit of, like, he's competitive. He'll bring a bit of that.
Yeah.
He'll be up for it. He'll have a point to prove to the selectors. He'll be put on to push his case. So having a guy like that come down from the Stags, and actually probably all the guys who are coming down for the Stags will have a bit of a point to prove. So that'll help the town boys' cause. It's just, I'm not too sure how cohesive they'll be with just probably a Thursday training under the belt. So
yeah, and if their back's coming down, it might not even help out there.
no, that's the other thing. Mind you, I don't know how if they've got heaps of backs to come down, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see what plays out. 2:30 at Mosburn, and of course the Southland women who took on Otago Development last weekend in Dunedin had an error. I think it was 22 points to 10. They went down, so they're having a rematch out at Mosburn at 12:30. So that'll be, I guess, interesting to see whether the Southland ladies. I know there was a wee bit on going on social media around trying to push for a Whare Parma Cup team. I guess that'll be more of a long-term, perhaps, thing rather than a short-term solution, I would suggest. But nonetheless, we'll see how the ladies go this week.
So with that, Scotty, I did see the Whare Parma Cup ladder, and so every union but Southland have got a team. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
correct. I'm guessing our player numbers are probably comfortably lower than every other.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many.
Yeah. And I know a couple of those championship Whare Parma teams are struggling, especially as well. Particularly, I know Tasman. Speaking to a couple of people, they've definitely struggled this year. Lost a couple of, I guess, what you'd say they're better players off to other teams, and I guess just a lack of depth. They're really finding it pretty tough. I know this year the only probably saving grace is there's no crossover games like in the men's competition, so. They're a wee bit isolated in terms of they don't have to play the Auckland or the Canterbury. So I guess watch the space, but probably, I guess, if you're being realistic about it, probably not anytime soon in terms of a Southland FPC team. But we'll see what happens. Guess the big event on this weekend, fellas, Sunday, 2 o'clock, Rugby Park.
Have you got anything to touch on from the 19s from last week, or how'd they...
19. Well, can report we did play Town, as I said before. Can't say you call it a game. It was a 40-minute hit out with some bit of scenarios, but Spinner took the whistle and did a great job, as usual. But yeah, some good signs for the 19s. Got a fixture this weekend against North Otago Development, so I guess that'll give the fellas and the coaching staff a bit of an idea of where we're at. Take on Otago next weekend in a warm-up game before taking them on the next week in the first competition game. Of course, the under-19s formerly the Jock Hobbs national tournament in Taupo, but obviously COVID's curtailed that. Now the Super Rugby under-20s, so the under-19s has become more of a regional setup. So we've got South Island with the 4 teams, Hurricanes, Chiefs and Blues. So each sort of area play their own wee competition. From a Southland perspective, obviously, I guess in terms of a means of being able to compete and be competitive against especially Canterbury, allows a handful of under-20 players. So I guess that does, I guess, aid the cause big time in terms of being able to compete. So with some pretty handy under-20 players around within Southland, we hopefully be able to go out there and make a good account of ourselves. But yeah, this Saturday taking on North Otago B in Dunedin. So
have you had any words about? Have they played any games in North Otago B?
I see on Facebook they took on South Canterbury B, so went down I think by 20 odd points. So not sure what that means for us. So I guess we'll find out on Saturday. But yeah, nonetheless, be a good head out for the fellas. Few good lads in that team. Few of them ventured their way up to Stag Day on Saturday, so saw them in the crowd enjoying themselves, which is good stuff. Along with the manager.
Yeah, I did see. There was quite a few familiar faces in that Southland crowd. There was probably well over half the Marist cricket team up there, so it was great to see.
That's always good when you see a lad in the crowd, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sinking a couple. But yeah, I guess the other thing in Dunedin, speaking of games in Dunedin this weekend, first 15 Highlanders final. Southland Boys High School have made it to the final. First time, I think, in 3 or 4 years since they've been there. A bit of a hiatus after losing to Kings probably the last 2 or 3 seasons, I think it has been, in the semi. So got back to the final, heading to Forsyth Bar, taking on Otago Boys High School. Nothing really between these two teams this year. Two games played. Southland Boys took the honours 25-19 the first time, and then Otago Boys 13-12 the second time round. So really not much between the sides. So should be a good game of footy. 2 under the roof. If you're in Dunedin, I'm sure it'll be worth a watch, along with some of the Colts finals, I believe. So
Yeah.
big day at Forsyth Bar.
Demons are in a couple of those finals. Clubs
Yes, they're
tracking well.
playing each other in one, aren't they?
Probably they're that good, mate. Fucking quality.
Might be the B final. So how do you rate their chances this weekend, Scotty? Obviously, you've got a bit of a role, and then Otago Boys have probably improved since that time you beat them at.
Yeah, I think I would say Southland Boys got more than a fair shout. Very impressive last weekend against a pretty big Kings side. 34-10, dominated the game, played some pretty smart footy at times. So, yeah, I think the forwards, obviously no secret, the forward pack of Southland Boys is pretty strong this year. So the likes of Jack Taylor, Aaron Withy, Jackson Bevan, along with the other lads that are in the pack, pretty strong. And then I thought young Kaya at 10, I thought he had a pretty good game, very good game last week. And then you got Richie Carissa, who looks like he could run out and play, comfortably play probably NPC from a physical point of view, terrorising a few young white wingers around the first 15 scene. So, they can sort of hold on to the ball and play at the right end, as is the old cliche. I think they'll be right. Otago Boys, obviously, 2 pretty influential players. Samisi, big unit number 8. Not sure if you fellas have seen him play, but he's pretty impressive. Almost like a Leo Tossi for those who might not... or for an analogy, so a bit of a Leo Tossi type number 8, massive unit who can run the football, and I guess Finn Hurley at 10, who's pretty talented young bloke. Yeah, another Southlander. So Gore lad run the cutter. So he's obviously, we know what he's like. He's a very good kicker and talented playmaker. So I guess those 2 are their big threats. But it'll be a good game nonetheless, I think.
Yeah. Those forwards you mentioned for Southland Boys, like Jack Taylor, they're still pretty mobile too. So a switch to the stadium shouldn't hurt them too much. Like if that's your strength, you probably want at the final on something a bit slower. But those boys are pretty mobile, aren't they?
Yeah, very mobile, Brycey. So I think they'll be well accustomed enough under the roof. I know a lot of them, it's their first time playing under the roof, so I guess the eyes will be having a wee look around the place. They may actually get a few more people to the ground than the South and Otago game, so I guess we'll watch that with interest. But
wouldn't be too hard.
No,
get that back 3 out there for a few extra high balls before the game, because it's a bit different. They're coming out of the rafters. It's fucking a bit strange.
Have you played there, Brycey?
I'll pass that on, Brycey.
Yeah, a couple games.
Did you play a rod or nah?
Dropped my first one.
Yeah.
Lost it in the lights.
Yeah. Peter Breen put one high and
Rugby bricks.
Rugby bricks, Clay.
The white fucking beams across the roof. I was like, lost it.
You would have been looking for anything to blame after shelling that too.
Oh yeah. It's there. The crowd's on top of you too. They fucking told me about it.
Not the Broncos.
Yeah.
Right, fellas, we'll finish off. Stags, Bay of Plenty, 2:00 Sunday. Weather forecast looking pretty average, as per your standard Stags Hove game, especially the first one of the season. Probably not going to be one for the faint-hearted eyes, but Stags probably more than a shout. I did watch some of the Bay of Plenty game against Tasman last Sunday, and I know they played in pretty terrible conditions in Tauranga. Went down, pretty scrappy performance against Tasman, so I guess probably one that's going to be a tough game for the Stags, but probably one, especially at home, that's there for the taking.
Absolutely, especially if the conditions are as bad as advertised. Bopper in Southland's division, aren't they?
Bops
Was-
up. So they're in
Bops
the
up.
Premiership.
Okay, right.
Premiership.
Okay, that takes away the point I was going to make. Yeah, it will be interesting. It was hard to gauge anything from that Bop performance. It was one of the few I actually saw a little bit of. It was.
Yeah.
I thought actually they looked like they had Tasman sort of
Yeah.
making a wee bit, but just couldn't quite get across the line. And they've got a pretty solid looking team. Bay Plenty. So if South can put in a performance that earns them a win, that's a pretty big tick for them early doors. Bay Plenty sort of got threats all over the place. So how South can go about nullifying that's going to be important this Sunday, isn't it? Sunday.
Yeah, a couple of familiar faces trudging back on the rugby part this weekend, Brossy. Pasaleo Tossi, I would imagine, will be in the 23 along with Manaki Selby Rickett. Pretty familiar to Southland Marison Star rugby folk.
Yep. I'm just looking at their lineup against Tasman. Manaki started and Leo was off the bench, so I assume they'll go with that again unless there's any injuries. So, bit of a homecoming for those two fellas. I think they were left on good terms. I don't think there'll be any beef or anything like that. It'd be good to see Manaki again. He was, I think, probably our best player over the last 3 years, 2-3 years anyway. So, good luck to him. I think for the Stags, they kind of this weekend, just building on that Otago game, probably need to score more than one try. Obviously, it sounds like it's a pretty obvious statement, but apart from that line-out move from Tatey, they didn't get over the chalk. So it's been not a problem because the defence has been really good the last 3 years, but they don't score many tries, so they're probably going to have to, against that Bay of Plenty team with, Chase Tia and Caleb Trask and that, probably score of 2 or 3 at least. So that'll be the challenge. How they get those, I don't know. If it's wet conditions, line out.
Joe Robbins rolls the sleeves up, mate.
Yeah.
That not scoring many points, I know it sounds silly, but it becomes a real issue. Say if you're down 14-0 early and got to chase the game, and it can sort of, if you're not used to scoring points, it can actually become really difficult to. Yeah, you're like, fuck, we've only scored, a couple of tries in each game. Like, fuck, we're in a hole already. That's when it can sort of get away from you. So I think importance for Southland as well, starting well and, just make sure they're in that game early.
Yeah.
What was the strategy for Lambourne being on the bench?
I think there was more so just the fact he hadn't played. So it was purely just he hadn't played. I think he was, to be fair, I was like, obviously he came on at half time. I guess his lungs would have been screaming. I know he was looking at possibly only 20 minutes, but he did 40. I know I've got a feeling he will be starting this week. Tony, I'm sure he'll put himself straight into that starting contention. Not that he picks the team or anything, but I'm sure he'll walk into Dale's office and demand he's good for 80. So, I guess you put him back in there. I know just in terms of personnel as well, Mikey McKee, I believe, is imminent. His return is imminent, and as well as perhaps Josh Morby. Not sure whether they'll be in the starting lineup or on the bench, but definitely keep an eye out. Those two could be lacing up, which would be, I guess, a huge boost for the Staggies. Both very good performers in 2020 in a maroon jersey. I guess Marty McKenzie, I think he's another week away, so possibly week 3, which you put those 3 back in. Tavita Latu could be even another week after that. So all of a sudden, a few players back, things starting to look on the up. But like you said at the start, Brycey, really all about going to have to try and get a couple of those wins against teams that they hopefully should fancy their chances against.
Definitely.
Right. Oh no, fellas, that might do us, I think. We'll see what the second week brings. And Southland Town v Country might come back and have a wee look at how that went. Southland B team will obviously get named next week, so we'll have a wee look at that and see how the 19s and the boys side first 15 got on.
I would not mind if they put that game on the Portaway, that Town Country one, because I don't know if I could be asked driving out to Mozzie when there's a fair bit of good footy on the idiot box, but even a live stream.
I'm sure it'll be available, mate.
Awesome
possibly not on the live stream. I will be in Dunedin, so will be unavailable for a live stream of Mosburn, but we'll see what happens. Who knows? Mosburn Rugby Club, Harbour Hawks could go live. Who knows?
Would not mind it. Just someone going live.
Watch that space. Anyone want to go live in Mosburn? Make sure you sing out. All right. Cheers, fellas. Play back next week.
All right, Scotty.
Coney. How much are you going to